Nose holding is a workplace bullying technique that workplace bullies use to suggest that the target smells bad, that the target emits some kind of physical odor, halitosis, body odor, or in the case of women, feminine or menstrual odor. Whether or not the target actually has BO or halitosis is completely irrelevant. Types of nose holding range from passive to aggressive. Passive forms of nose holding include crinkling the nose a la Bewitched, sniffing, flicking, brushing, and touching the tip of the nose with the fingers, and squeezing and pinching the cartilage at the tip of the nose with the fingers. Some workplace bullies may use another workplace bullying technique, the technique of mind games, to make offers of gum or mints, wave containers of wipes and hand sanitizer at the target, and suggest that the target needs to take a shower. Aggressive forms of nose holding include a sort of loud, violent, aggressive snorting that sounds like a horse sneezing, and violent, exaggerated, and dramatic rubbing of the nose. Some workplace bullies may wrap one entire hand or even both hands around the entire lower half of the face and sit staring at the target with an expression of pure horror. Workplace bullies may dramatically and exaggeratedly spray cans of air freshener around the target or the target's space or outside the bathroom after the target has used it. Alternatively, workplace bullies like to recruit among bystanders to workplace bullying flying monkeys in their narcissistic smear campaign to engage in nose holding toward the target for abuse by proxy. Unlike a lot of workplace bullying techniques, nose holding is one that happens to be very visible and a technique that workplace bullies employ even in the presence of people who matter, such as the higher ups. At the very least, when workplace bullies use nose holding, they really, really need the target to see what they are doing. Nose holding is a lot like the workplace bullying technique of insults, except it's even more passive aggressive. It's not even verbalized. Workplace bullies are, by definition, people who need to put down other people in order to feel good about themselves, to feel good, period, or to feel anything at all. The motto of workplace bullying is, I need to judge and hurt you before you have a chance to judge and hurt me. Workplace bullies have a strategy of hit you where it hurts the most. When they attempt to point out your flaws, they are trying to attack your insecurities. Though some people may disagree with me, I argue that workplace bullying is a form of narcissistic abuse because the parallels are uncanny. However, there are some differences between narcissistic abuse in the workplace and narcissistic abuse in romantic relationships, and this is one of them. In a romantic relationship, you make yourself emotionally vulnerable, so the narcissist really does know your insecurities and can hit you on them. In the workplace, if you're like me and you actually have boundaries, you have not made yourself emotionally vulnerable. So when workplace bullies are trying to identify your insecurities, they are taking shots in the dark. It's almost comical. It's like a bad game of darts. Their points of attack always follow the same order. First is physical appearance, second is personal habits, and third is character. It's so predictable that I could time my watch by it. Workplace bullies start with the physical body because that's their level. Workplace bullies are so lazy, weak, stupid, dumb, shallow, and superficial that they operate almost exclusively on a physical and sexual level. They assume that you are insecure about your physical body. And when it comes to women, that's a fair assessment, because in many cultures, women are socialized to be insecure about their bodies. At the very least, if you are not the kind of person who needs to put down other people in order to feel good about yourself, then go ahead and thank your creator, God, goddess, higher self, source, one source consciousness, or whatever you call it, because that's a blessing. Though nose holding takes place in the elimination phase of workplace bullying, it's also a form of domination. Nose holding is a power trip. It's an attempt to dominate the target and to get control and power over the target by breaking down the target's boundaries. The one boundary that is the biggest obstacle preventing workplace bullies from getting control and power over the target is confidence. Workplace bullies are trying to damage, erode, and destroy your self-esteem. Workplace bullies really, 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 really need you to feel bad about yourself. Nose holding is also a form of another workplace bullying technique, the technique of objectification, because it reduces the target to the level of the physical body and teaches you that you are nothing but an object. Again, nose holding is one of the most visible workplace bullying techniques because it is the workplace bullying form of public shaming. Specifically, this is body shaming, but it's different from the body shaming that takes place, for example, on social media, because this too is even more passive aggressive. Workplace bullies are completely lacking in any sort of spiritual awareness, knowledge, or wisdom. They are completely unconscious, but they are not stupid. They almost never do or say anything that can get them into trouble, or worse, get them fired. Workplace bullies are narcissists, or at the very least exhibit very narcissistic tendencies. So they care about one thing and one thing only, and that's their public image, how they look to other people. The whole point of workplace bullying is that it needs to be as subtle, indirect, and passive aggressive as possible, so the workplace bullies can never be called on their behavior and it can never get back to them. Workplace bullies understand that in most situations they can't really get away with making overt comments about, for example, your weight or your dress size, but they can intimate that you smell bad. In order to understand shame, it's important to understand the difference among shame, blame, and guilt. This is not constructive criticism or feedback from an authority figure who cares about your success and wants you to do well. This is toxic shame. Like Dr. Ramani Durvasula says, shame is a public emotion. Shame is a social emotion. It's not a basic emotion that you can feel by yourself alone in solitude. Guilt is a basic emotion. You feel guilty for something that you did. Blame is also for something that you did. But shame is for who you are. Shame ostracizes the target by suggesting that the target is too different to belong to the group. This is, after all, the elimination phase. Nose holding makes the target a pariah and attempts to push the target out of the group. And workplace bullies are hoping to capitalize on the universal human fear of disconnection. In order to understand nose holding, it's important to understand projection. Workplace bullies, in their ignorance of the target, have not correctly identified the target's real insecurities. So they attack the wrong insecurities because those are their insecurities. Workplace bullies are simply projecting their own shame about their own physical bodies and, quite frankly, sometimes their own bad smell. If you've ever been body shamed with nose holding in the workplace, you may have noticed that the worst nose holders in the place actually do smell bad sometimes. They can reek of cigarettes and alcohol, have body odor, and have feminine or menstrual odor. I have a theory that most targets of workplace bullying are empaths, or at the very least highly sensitive people. And one aspect of empathy is called the mirroring effect. If you ever do actually have halitosis or body odor, you may simply be reflecting the workplace bully's own bad smell. If you are an empath like me, one of your spiritual gifts may be clairsentience, and consider that a red flag. If you detect an actual bad smell in a coworker, it's a warning sign that you have a bully on your hands. Workplace bullies try to shame the target about the physical body because that's exactly what their parents did to them. As with all workplace bullying techniques, when workplace bullies employ nose holding, they only expose their own toxic, maladaptive, and dysfunctional families of origin and childhood abuse, physical and especially sexual. When else in society are women shamed for quote unquote smelling bad? Workplace bullies feel that they are physically disgusting, and nothing makes a person feel more physically disgusting than childhood sexual abuse. I argue that the worst nose holders in the workplace are the ones who were sexually abused the most. Nose holding is ironic because it's both attention seeking and attention deflecting. Bullies bully for many reasons, but yes, one of those reasons is to get attention. Again, nose holding is so visible in public and often in the presence of the people who matter, the higher ups, as an audience, and there's a reason for that. Narcissism is defined by many things, but one characteristic of narcissism is pathological jealousy. Because workplace bullies are narcissists, in their jealousy, they have arbitrarily and completely irrationally created unnecessary competition. And they think that by putting the target down, it will make them look good, especially to the people they are trying to impress, such as supervisors. At the same time, by focusing on and drawing attention to the target's flaws, inadequacies, and insecurities, workplace bullies can distract and deflect attention away from their own. Another reason nose holding is ironic is its physical nature. Another characteristic of narcissism is the complete lack of boundaries. Other mental illnesses may have poor boundaries, but narcissists have no boundaries. In the workplace, this manifests in other workplace bullying techniques like, for example, physical violence, which primarily takes the forms of space invasion and inappropriate touching. Narcissistic workplace bullies seemingly have no problem completely violating your personal physical space and boundaries, up to and including even touching you without your permission or consent. And yet, at the same time, with nose holding, they are pushing you away by shaming your body as disgusting, by suggesting that you smell bad. It is one of the few instances in which workplace bullies can exhibit artificial boundaries. So that's an introduction to the workplace bullying technique of nose holding. To read more in detail, I've written an essay on workplace bullying and it's on my website, and I include that information in the description. The reason that I create this video series is to establish a forum where targets of workplace bullying can share their experiences and stories in a kind of support group, so you can know, number one, you're not crazy. Workplace bullying is real. Your feelings are perfectly valid and justified. And number two, you're not alone. Unfortunately, there are countless others who have experienced the same thing. So I look forward to reading your comments, and I promise to try to respond to each one. Take care.